Hi, my name is Katie Calson, and my final project is on nuclear energy. So one of the most common misconceptions is that nuclear energy is one of the least safe of different forms of energy, and this presentation is on why that's not considered true. So over all the years of use in 33 different countries, only 3 major incidents have occurred. The first is here in the US in 1979, and the reactor was damaged, but no deaths occurred, and the radiation was fully contained. Another one, Fukushima, was in 2011 in Japan, and this occurred because of damage due to the tsunami. It caused problems with the generator, and this led to issues with coolant, and so 3 reactors were damaged. In addition to this, Tokyo Electric Power Company, the ones that were in charge of it, did take blame for it as well because they didn't put in some of the necessary safety features that should have been included. This one was fortunate as nobody did die, but there was contamination, and it's expected that 30 to 40 years will be needed to clean up the area, even though it was only 11% of the contamination of Chernobyl. So the third one, Chernobyl, happened in 1986 in Ukraine, and it happened because they were doing a test that was supposed to be performed during the day, and it was pushed back to the night crew who was not as prepared for it. So the operator was not following procedures, which led to a kind of unstable reactor, and this coupled with some of the design flaws in the reactor led to the actual incident occurring. The aftermath was 2 people died just directly from the accident, and 28 more from radiation exposure. Also, it is estimated about 4,000 people died just from the long-term effects of the radiation exposure just in the general area. And while this might seem like a lot, it's not as much if you compare it to other forms of energy. For example, 13,000 people die each year in the US due to coal. Another kind of effect of these incidents is that safety has improved. So there are different regulatory agencies. The IAEA, with the International Atomic Energy Agency, is kind of the international body. There's also the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, here in the US. And so they have different rules about safety and other things that keep nuclear kind of following the rules so that these disasters are likely to not happen again, or the severity should hopefully be reduced. So one of the things they're doing is they're limiting worker exposure. So they're having more like robots and stuff so that people aren't in direct contact with some of the dangerous stuff. They're limiting the time that people are in contact, and it's working. That radiation exposure is less than it's a tiny fraction of what it was in the 80s, and it's even less than what the NRC has as a required level. Another thing is the core damage frequency, which is kind of how often a nuclear reactor will go off, went from 1 in 10,000 years to 1 in a million, so the technology is improving as well. Also, just the way it's set up, there are different barriers inside to keep the core reactor from contaminating the outside area. So it starts with the kind of fuel and the byproducts of nuclear fission are contained in a pellet, and that's enclosed in a zirconium alloy tube, and that is enclosed in another layer, steel, which is about 30 centimeters thick, and then finally it's enclosed around reinforced concrete, which has to be at least 1 meter thick. So there are many different layers protecting the outside world from the reaction that's going on. And while this is great, the really best way to compare safety as a form of energy is to compare it to other forms, because they all do have inherent risks, and they all aren't perfectly safe. So if you look at the chart, this kind of goes over if the whole world was powered by one form of energy, what is the hypothetical amount of deaths that would occur due to it. And if you can see, nuclear is significantly less many of the other ones. For example, coal was about 4 million, and nuclear was like 11,000, so a tiny portion of some of the other stuff. So overall, nuclear is the safest of the major energy forms here in the US. Wind would be the second safest, and it still has 4 times the amount of deaths that occur due to nuclear. So if ever in the future you hear anything about nuclear being safe, just know that it's not true, and nuclear is the safest form of energy. Thank you.